The year when two of the most horrendous things known to mankind were launched, Pope Benedict XVI and Twitter. When Saddam Hussein was found in a hole, and a hole was found in Steve Irwin. When the World Cup was held in Germany, when the Human Genome Project was completed, and when Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart would have turned 250. The year was 2006, also the year of release of this Unmissable album. I'm CJ, welcome to Unmissable Album Series, Episode 2. Basically, when I was choosing an album for the Unmissable Album Series, I thought, okay, what albums do I own? What can I do with them? Originally, I thought I'd play one of my DJ albums. The house and electronica sort of thing, but I thought, okay, that's compilation sort of stuff. That's something I don't want to expose everybody else to. It's too many artists, too much, too often, and besides, who listens to that much house music apart from me? I did hover for a long time over an album called Discotheque, which is really good, relaxing sort of study music. But that's another compilation. I ultimately decided against it. Then I had the ideas of Mike Oldfield and Jean-Michel Jarre and all that thrown in, and I thought, okay, these are really good artists, but I want something that goes for 80 minutes or thereabouts. I want something that people can listen to, form an opinion on, and maybe even listen to it in a different way, listen with their eyes and their imagination rather than just their ears. So, process after process, I went through Daft Punk, Vector Lovers, all sorts of different albums. But in the end, I settled on the album that we're going to listen to tonight. We're going to be listening to Felix Laband's Dark Days Exit. That's probably one of the best albums that he's produced, and that's what I'm going to subject these 7 people to tonight. Cheers.
It was good, but it felt underutilized. It felt like it could have been more, or at least some songs felt like they could have been better, or well, more than what they were. But for the most part, I'd say it was pretty good.
I feel like all the sounds he used, he sort of made them go a long way in terms of the texture. The same sound would be used twice, but the second time he'd cut it off right on the beat, and that sort of creates a completely different effect. In terms of like doing all that kind of stuff, I thought it was pretty amazing. But I also sort of felt that it sort of became kind of predictable after a while in terms of it'd have sort of one pattern going for a short while with a couple of little variations and sound effects and that sort of thing, and then it'd just change to a new pattern and go for about the same amount of time.
It's the sort of thing that I felt like all of the songs could have gone. I don't know where to look at the camera. Or you?
Take your pick.
The sort of songs that could have just gone on kind of forever, kind of like improv. Like I'm sure he wasn't making it up as he goes, because it's really maybe the kind of thing that'd be really hard to put together. But
it's beeps and boofs and it makes CJ happy. I actually kind of liked it. It's like this kind of ambient stuff is sort of I'm not that into, and there were certainly bits of it that kind of beepy boopy like weird stuff that I'm like, okay, that's a bit strange. But overall, like just having that sort of stuff as background music, I kind of liked it. It's just sort of, it is relaxing.
I liked it. I don't normally listen to instrumental music, but I quite enjoyed it.
I thought it was very interesting, like the mix of classical instruments with other unusual instruments and sound effects was a very interesting mix.
From the moment I heard it, I think it was about a year after its release, I thought this is really good, relaxing, sort of backgroundy sort of music to study to, and indeed that's pretty much what we were doing the first time we heard it. Myself and a couple of friends were studying for our VCE exams. My view hasn't really changed much in 6 years.
Radio right now, or Black Shoes, he started to get kind of 9 Inch Nailsy, like in sort of like what he was doing, and that was interesting. Some of the heavier songs were quite good. Mind you, Whistling in Tongues, the first song, that was also quite nice.
Black Shoes kind of stood out the most for me, just because it sort of went subtle, creepy vibe going for it that the other tracks didn't. Standout would have to be the beginning of Crooked Breath, actually, just with the sort of heart monitor sound. As
someone who doesn't like creepy movies and stuff, I wasn't a fan of the ones that sounded really creepy and put horror movie type stuff in my head. Yeah. Although I did like, I think it was the shoe one that one was like a really cool kind of dark.
I think the one I liked the most was probably Falling Off a Horse, because I liked the kind of acoustic guitar-y bit in the beginning. I also really liked, Was Red-Handed the kind of dark, more sort of creepy one, or was that Black Shoes? I can't remember.
Black Shoes.
Black Shoes, yeah. Quite like that one.
I think, if I'm correct, there was a lot of piano in Sleeping Household, and I really like piano. But Minka, for some reason, made me think of like a rainforest.
It was a sort of tie between, was it Black Shoes and Radio Right Now? Because for me, they sort of produced the strongest images.
Miss Teardrop, the second track, but Radio Right Now has been in a list of songs that I like listening to after a night out for, I don't know, a good 4 years now, 5 years. I don't know why, but I've always had the strongest emotional reaction to Radio Right Now.
Could have been Dirty Nightgown, I can't remember exactly what it was called. But there was one that was just quite poppy and just annoyingly upbeat. It just kind of felt like, I don't know, he just went too light and too silly.
The one without the cookie in it. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't actually pick one. I'd have to listen to all of them again to sort of figure out that.
The last one's kind of just like blurred together for me, but that might have just been from so much of listening to ambient music.
Possibly Sleeping Household, mainly because that's the one that just kind of, I guess, melts into the others the most for me, that I can't really remember that well from like listening through all of them. Because yeah, I mean, a lot of this sort of stuff, it's like, I liked it, but in this, a lot of it sounded kind of the same all the way through, so it's a bit difficult to discern one track from another, like when thinking back.
I don't know whether this constitutes weakest, but the song I liked the least was probably Whistling in Tongues, which I liked to start with, but then the vocals which came in towards the end weirded me out a little bit and really put me off.
Falling Off a Horse and Sleeping Household.
It would have to be Black Shoes. I used to think it was Crooked Breath until I started properly listening to it, and I somehow got a different perspective when I really properly listened to it.
Yes and no. One thing that I kept hearing in this is that this guy has listened to a lot of Brian Eno when he was younger. And Brian Eno had a series, well, he basically invented ambient music, and yeah, I listened to a bit of his music for Airports, or well, the ambient series every now and then. So yeah, I don't mind ambient instrumental stuff. Listen to it now and then.
I mean, I don't normally sort of seek out ambient music, but you know, if it falls into my lap, it usually sort of works its way into half my playlist.
No, I definitely didn't.
I really don't. I mean, I have maybe a couple of albums that would count as more dark ambient, which I really enjoy, and it is just quite nice and relaxing. It's definitely something cool to listen to while I'm just sort of doing something else.
Up until a few months ago, no, but then I sort of really got into ambient music, and yeah, so now I listen to it a lot.
Very much so. I've always loved ambient sort of stuff, and especially the electronic experimental stuff, even if it's not ambient like Rat-a-Tat, but also things like Luke Viber, Lucene, and Vector Lovers, and I've always loved that sort of experimental stuff.
Whistling in Tongues, I could imagine someone in one of those wingsuits, like say what you see the Red Bull guys doing. Yeah, I could just imagine basically someone in a wingsuit just flying through the clouds. Obviously not realistically, like they were just doing proper flying, and then just it's turned, and I could just imagine them swooping down and weaving through the mountains around Pretoria and Joburg.
Dirty Nightgown, sort of like I would have expected from the title that it'd sort of be one of those sort of red light district sort of things, but all it brought to my mind was like washing a nightgown.
I was picturing like stuff that was set in like outdoors or like big open spaces, so like in the creepier ones I was getting like big dark houses and stuff. But I also kind of got distracted with trying to identify the instruments, or just as often the non-instruments that were the source of the sound, and so I was like picturing accordions and stuff.
I was listening to that, just the beep, 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 and it kind of eventually kind of became more boom, boom, and I was just sitting there thinking, prepare to surface, Captain. It's like, I'm seeing a submarine. There's some odd images with this album, which I like. I mean, I like kind of just getting images in my head when I listen to kind of ambient or instrumental music, so it was cool. So there were definitely a few with this one, lots of very kind of ethereal escapes, but occasionally just something, a weird thing, you know, like a submarine comes into view. And yeah, the end of Falling Off a Horse, where there is actually that soundbite of galloping. I pictured a dude just sitting in the desert looking dejected while his horse runs away.
The Whistling in Tongues one, for some reason, it sounded like something you might hear on a travel show, like Getaway.
Black Shoes one, I pictured a person running through a forest being chased by wolves. And Radio Right Now, I could actually picture the instruments in a haunted house. And the last one, I could picture a rainforest.
There are an awful lot of images. For 9 out of the 10 songs, mostly they're sort of pictures of the last, 7 years. Any time I've spent at my grandparents' property, and that's decreasingly so. Radio Right Now has always evoked something really different. It's sort of two people having a conversation in the dark, a guy and a girl. And then in the second section, it's raining and they're hugging, and it's not a happy one. It's more maudlin.
Yeah, there are a few songs I definitely want to listen to again. The whole album, maybe not so much so.
In the background while I'm doing something else, definitely.
Yes. I don't know, it's not the sort of thing I would want to just like have playing in the background in my house, because like I said, some of the stuff was kind of creepy, and I wouldn't want to listen to it alone.
Maybe. I mean, like Mike said, I probably definitely wouldn't like listen to it for the sake of listening to it, but it's definitely be a nice thing to kind of have going just in the background, like when something else is happening.
Just certain songs of it.
Yes, it's a really good one to have in the background while I'm writing.
Most definitely. I've listened to the whole album start to finish about 3 dozen times. And in a music library filled with over 9,000 songs, that's just, a hell of an achievement.
This guy, he kind of sounds like a South African version of Gorrie. Like, the album sounds like it was done basically all by the one guy. He played all the instruments, and more or less sounds like he did in his bedroom. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying it has that kind of vibe to it. He had a bit of fun with it, but I don't know, I feel like he may have gotten a little lazy with some songs, and he didn't quite push some songs as hard as he could have. So overall, a good effort, but he could have tried harder. And again, that was 7 years ago, so I would like to hear what his 4th album sounds like.
First off, you probably shouldn't listen to it when you have to use the bathroom. There's a lot of dripping water and rain and drains and things. And the other thing that really struck me is just like, it's the sort of music that I'm not sure it's possible to get stuck in your head. Because when you're listening to it, there's like a really clear pattern, and you're like, how could I ever make it stop almost? Especially with the heart monitor.
So what did you think, Socially Inappropriate Red Panda?
Sounds like someone pissed on a soundboard.
It was very odd stuff, but I like odd stuff. I would probably listen to it again. I would listen to more of that sort of stuff. I'd just check more of it out, see what it's all like.
I don't really have too many other comments about the album itself. I obviously love it to bits, and it's a fantastic album, but I do want to say that tonight's been a really good opportunity for me. I haven't actually heard this album in full for some time, probably bordering a year by now. It was great, partially to see it through three new different perspectives. First one was this spectrogram. It's the first time I've had the spectrogram analyzer running on this album. Second was obviously to hear it anew for the first time in that long. And the third time was listening to it through the comments of my friends, to see what they, not quite to see what they see, but to understand what they see, and just to see all the completely different perspectives that go into analysing this album in their own minds. Okay. My knob level is over 9,000. I know.
So bad it gave me